Let me tell you about the time my company forced me to work overtime without pay. I honestly thought I'd finally made it when I got the offer from Anderson Logistics in Austin. I felt like all my hard work had finally paid off. After years of low-paying admin jobs in the suburbs, the idea of working for a company with career growth potential and competitive benefits at the heart of a big city felt like winning the lottery. They called themselves Austin's fastest-growing operations firm. Their offices were in one of those renovated industrial buildings east of downtown. It had exposed brick, glass walls, and even kombucha on tap. The kind of place that tries a little too hard to look modern and humane. When I walked in for my first day, everything sparkled with that fake startup energy. Beanbag chairs in the break room, motivational posters about teamwork, and open concept desks that made everyone look busier than they really were. I was hired as a project coordinator, which sounded important but really meant I was the glue holding everything together while management took the credit. My direct manager, Theo, was actually great, the only genuinely good thing about the company. He was mid-30s, sharp-minded, and the kind of calm you only see in people who've already been burned before. He was one of those rare bosses who didn't micromanage. Then there was Melissa, our director of operations, and the person who technically ran our department. She was the kind of person who could tell you to jump off a bridge and make you thank her for the opportunity. Perfect hair, manicured nails, blinding smile, and a personality so corporate polished that every compliment felt like a trap. She used "we're a family" like a weapon. If you didn't stay late, you were letting the family down. If you took a sick day, you were not showing family spirit. I'd only been there a few months when Melissa called an all-hands meeting in the conference room. She clicked her heels to the front like she owned the place and announced, "Corporate has greenlit the Horizon System Upgrade Project. This is a massive opportunity for our branch to stand out. It'll require long hours and full commitment, but this is how future leaders are made." Someone asked if that meant we get overtime pay. Melissa smiled the way sharks smile at smaller fish. "We're not budgeting for overtime right now, but the visibility you'll get from this project is worth so much more than money." Everyone laughed nervously, but I didn't. I remember glancing at Theo across the room. His expression was unreadable, but I could tell he hated this. Later that day, he found me at my desk and said quietly, "Don't kill yourself over this. I'll take some of the load if I can." It was a small thing, but it meant a lot. At first, the extra effort wasn't terrible. A few late nights here and there. Melissa sent chipper little emails at 8 p.m. saying, "Just one more tweak before tomorrow." Or "Quick favor, shouldn't take more than an hour." But soon, it wasn't an hour. It was every night. Every weekend. By the fourth week, I was working 12-hour days and Saturdays while my paychecks were the same. But my exhaustion was something new, a bone-deep fatigue. Theo looked worse too. His once neat hair was messy, and the circles under his eyes looked like bruises. Melissa, meanwhile, strutted around like she was running a Fortune 500 empire. She'd pop by at 5 to 50 p.m. to 10 minutes before closing and drop urgent assignments on our desks. When I hesitated, she'd say, "Oh, come on, Charlotte. You're one of our most reliable people. You're not a clock watcher, right?" Every word of that made me want to scream. It only got worse. She started holding optional 7 to 30 p.m. Zoom calls. She guilt-tripped people who left on time. And the kicker? She started hinting that those who went above and beyond during this project would be first in line for promotions. So people stayed. Everyone stayed. By the time the project's second month rolled around, I'd logged over 80 hours of unpaid overtime. When I brought it up to HR, they said, and I quote, "Charlotte, you're salaried. We don't calculate overtime for exempt employees." That word. Exempt. I didn't even know what it meant at the time. But I was about to learn a lot more than they wanted me to. At first, I told myself to tough it out. "It's just a busy quarter," I said. "Once the Horizon upgrade is done, things will calm down." But the upgrade never ended. The project kept expanding. New requests, new emergencies, new excuses to keep us working nights. Austin's summer heat was brutal that year. I'd leave the office after dark, and the pavement would still radiate warmth, like even the ground was tired of the day. I'd get home, collapse on my couch, and barely have energy to eat. Theo tried to keep morale up. He'd bring donuts some mornings, crack dry jokes in team meetings, or quietly take work off other people's plates. But even he was starting to break. I'll never forget one Friday night. It was 10:30, just the two of us left in the office. The air conditioner had already turned off for the night, so the air felt heavy and stale. Theo leaned back in his chair and said, "You ever feel like this place just eats time?" I laughed tiredly. "Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's eating my will to live, too." He smiled a little. "You know, this isn't normal. Melissa's turning free labor into a management strategy. And corporate doesn't even see it." That hit me. Because he was right. I thought Melissa was just a micromanager, but she was more strategic than that. She wasn't just ignoring our time, she was weaponizing our ambition. Every time someone looked like they were burning out, she'd offer vague promises. "You're on my radar for the next big thing. I've got you in mind for a leadership role." No one ever saw those promotions. The optional weekend work became mandatory. Melissa called it Project Support Saturdays. She said it was a chance to collaborate without distractions. Translation: unpaid work. When Theo questioned her about it in a staff meeting, she gave him that same fake smile. No one's being forced, Theo. But we all know who goes the extra mile when it counts. The silence that followed was suffocating. I looked around the table at people staring down at their notes, pretending not to hear. That was the moment I realized something ugly. Everyone was scared. Not of being fired, but of being labeled uncommitted. Melissa didn't need to threaten anyone. She made us police ourselves. By mid-July, I'd stopped sleeping properly. I'd dream about my inbox. I'd wake up panicking that I'd missed a deadline that didn't even exist. One night, after another 12-hour day, I sat in my car in the company parking lot and just stared. The neon lights from a taco place across the street flickered against my windshield. I'd given this company everything, and for what? To prove loyalty to someone who didn't even see me as a human being? That was when I decided something needed to change. That night on, I started keeping records. I started a spreadsheet labeled Timesheet Reference. Every night before I left the office, I logged my start and end times. Every urgent email Melissa sent after hours, every Zoom meeting past 6 p.m., and every optional Saturday she guilted us into joining. At first it felt paranoid, but within 2 weeks, I realized how bad it really was. Between June and August, I'd logged over 200 unpaid overtime hours, and that was just me. One day, during another mind-numbing team meeting, I overheard two coworkers whispering that their rent was late because they couldn't find time to pick up second jobs anymore. Another quietly admitted she missed her kid's birthday because Melissa scheduled a critical sync at 8 p.m. It wasn't a job anymore. It was a slow-motion burnout. Theo tried to shield me where he could, but even he had limits. One evening, he pulled me aside and said quietly, "Melissa's been asking about your timesheets." I blinked. "Why?" He sighed. "She thinks you've been leaving too early." I laughed in disbelief. "Leaving early? I'm here until 8 half the time." He gave me a tired look. "I know. But she's setting up a narrative. Be careful. She wants scapegoats if the project goes sideways." That was the first time I truly saw Melissa for what she was, not just manipulative but calculating. She was building her own paper trail. I wasn't just being overworked. I was being set up. So I doubled down on my records. I saved every email, every Teams chat, every after-hours task she assigned. I even started BCCing my personal email in certain threads. Then one Friday, everything boiled over. Melissa called me into a quick chat at 5:45 p.m. Her office was chic and organized. She smiled. "Charlotte, I wanted to talk about your dedication lately." That fake warmth made my stomach knot. "Oh, what about it?" "Well," she said, clasping her hands, "I've noticed you've been leaving around 7 most nights." The rest of the team often stays later. I blinked. Melissa, I've been working 12-hour days. Sometimes 13. Her smile didn't budge. We all have. This is a crucial period, and leadership is watching. I just want to make sure you're aligned with the company's commitment level. Are you saying I'm not? I asked carefully. She tilted her head. Not yet, but consistency matters. We can't have anyone appearing to prioritize personal time right now. I wanted to scream. That night when I told Theo, he was furious. She's laying groundwork to make you the fall person if anything misses deadline. That's when we decided to meet off the clock and talk about a plan. We met the next day at a coffee shop on South Congress. Theo looked exhausted, but determined. He leaned in and said quietly, I've been keeping records too. I blinked. You have? He nodded. Emails, directives, meeting recordings. I've got everything. I think she's breaking labor law. I froze. You think? He nodded again. Texas law follows the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act. Salaried workers still qualify for overtime unless they make a certain amount or fit certain exemptions. You and we don't. That night we compared our notes. My spreadsheet matched his documents almost perfectly. We weren't imagining it. Melissa was violating overtime law on a massive scale and corporate didn't have a clue. But they were about to. The next few weeks were pure survival mode. Melissa was ramping up pressure like she could sense people slipping. She started scheduling mandatory team bonding dinners, unpaid. Of course, at some overpriced rooftop bar downtown, she'd order cocktails, brag about her vision, and hint at promotions for the most committed. Meanwhile, everyone sat there pretending to smile while mentally calculating how little sleep they'd get before tomorrow's 7 a.m. meeting. I started noticing small cracks in her image. Once, she left her office door slightly open during a phone call with corporate. I overheard her saying, Of course, everyone's thrilled about the extra hours. My team's so passionate they'd practically live here. That one line stuck in my head like a splinter. That was when Theo and I started preparing. We divided the evidence. I tracked every hour worked, and every after-hours directive. He compiled every instance of her approving unpaid work. Together, we cross-referenced dates with timestamps and system logs. By the end of August, our file was over 300 pages long. Still, I was scared. I didn't want to lose my job. Rent in Austin wasn't forgiving, and I didn't have savings to risk. But then, Melissa made a mistake. It was early September, the Friday before Labor Day weekend. Everyone was drained and barely functioning. Melissa called another last-minute meeting. She started by praising herself for pushing the team to new heights. Then she announced, To show our gratitude, corporate approved a long weekend. Everyone gets Monday off if we finish the integration by midnight tonight. People groaned quietly. That was over 12 hours of work left. And she wanted it done before midnight? When Theo raised an eyebrow, she smiled like a game show host. This is where we separate the leaders from the followers. That was the last straw. Theo stayed late that night with me. We finished our work, turned off our computers, and sat in silence. Finally, he said, It's time. The following week, we reached out, not to HR, but to the Texas Workforce Commission. They had a division that handled wage complaints, including unpaid overtime violations. We didn't go in half-hearted. We submitted everything: emails, time logs, call recordings, screenshots. The whole mountain of evidence. The investigator we spoke with, an older man named Mr. Ruiz, was quiet for most of our meeting. He kept flipping through pages occasionally, shaking his head. Finally, he looked up and said, You two did your homework. This is serious. He explained that what Melissa had done wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. Under federal law, companies can't classify employees as exempt to avoid paying overtime unless they meet specific salary and duty requirements. Our positions didn't qualify. Meaning, every single unpaid hour we worked, the company owed us for it. And not just us. Everyone under Melissa's management. The weeks after we filed the complaint were the most surreal of my life. Theo and I didn't tell a soul. We just kept working, pretending everything was normal. But there was a quiet electricity under the surface, the kind you feel before a Texas thunderstorm. Melissa, completely unaware, doubled down. It was almost comical. She started holding 7 a.m. pep talks about team accountability. She introduced this ridiculous thing called a commitment board, where she posted sticky notes with people's names and extra effort. Examples. It was basically a public scoreboard of who was working the most unpaid hours. I remember standing there one morning, coffee in hand, staring at my name on a pink sticky note that said, "Stayed until 8:30 to finish deliverables." Like it was something to be proud of. Theo muttered under his breath, "This woman's building her own coffin." We just had to wait. The Texas Workforce Commission moved slower than I liked, but Mr. Awui's kept in touch. Every week or two I'd get an email saying, "We are still reviewing documentation and conducting interviews. Please continue to maintain normal work activity." Those words were torture. Because normal meant exhaustion, frustration, and Melissa's fake pep talks. But we held on. Then in early November, something shifted. I noticed corporate names popping into my inbox. Not just Austin HQ people, I mean regional VPs from Dallas and Houston. They started checking in on the Horizon project, asking about processes, time reporting, and employee engagement. Melissa brushed it off, of course. Just standard compliance reviews. We're the top performing branch, so they're learning from us. Except that week, 3 people from HR disappeared into closed-door meetings. Then the IT manager got called in. Then finance. Then Theo. Each came out looking pale and tight-lipped. By Friday, rumors were everywhere. Some said Melissa had cooked the books. Others said corporate found discrepancies in the budget. Then Monday came and brought the storm with it. I'll never forget that morning. It was gray and wet, the kind of Austin rain that turns I-35 into a parking lot. Everyone came in late and grumpy, clutching their coffee cups for dear life. Around 10 a.m., 2 men in suits arrived. They went straight to HR. 30 minutes later, the regional director walked in. Mark Henson was rarely seen at our branch. That alone made the whole floor go quiet. He looked furious. He went straight into the conference room with Melissa and HR. Through the glass walls, we could see snippets of papers being passed around, and Melissa's hands fluttering nervously. She kept gesturing, pointing at documents and shaking her head. Her confident, polished tone was gone. At one point, she slammed her hand on the table. Then she sat down, hard, like the wind had gone out of her. I tried not to stare, but the whole office was pretending not to watch. Even the receptionist stopped typing. 2 hours later, HR escorted her out. No speech, no good luck team. Just a small box of her desk things and her signature click-click of heels down the hall. That afternoon, corporate sent an email. The subject line read Leadership Update. Effective immediately, Melissa Henderson is no longer employed with Anderson Logistics. We thank her for her contributions and wish her well in her future endeavors. 2 days later, HR started calling people into private meetings. They explained in careful legal jargon that the company had been informed of certain discrepancies regarding compensation practices and was cooperating fully with regulators. Translation: they'd been caught. All 12 of us under Melissa's supervision received notices that the company was reviewing unpaid overtime claims. A week later, HR called me in. I expected formality and tension, but the HR rep looked almost relieved. She handed me a printed letter and said quietly, "Charlotte, I can't say much, but I want you to know this is long overdue." The letter detailed every unpaid hour I'd logged under Melissa's orders. It included my hourly rate, the legal overtime multiplier, and additional penalties. The total owed was over $11,000. They called it retroactive wage adjustment. I called it poetic justice. Theo got nearly 18 grand. And the best part? Every one of our coworkers who'd been forced into unpaid voluntary hours got compensated too. When the direct deposits hit, you could feel the collective mood lift. Someone actually brought champagne after hours and we toasted to freedom. But There was one final twist to come. 2 weeks after Melissa's exit, we got a meeting invite from corporate. The subject line read, Future of Austin Branch. Mandatory attendance. It was scheduled for Friday morning at 10 a.m. in the main break area. Everyone was tense. Even HR looked nervous. We half expected corporate to announce a restructuring or layoffs. Maybe a new director who'd be just another Melissa in a different blazer. When the time came, Mark Henson stood in front of us again. He looked tired but calmer. I know it's been a rough few months. A lot of you have worked harder than anyone should be asked to. I want to personally apologize for what happened. Here. It never should have taken this long to fix. But I believe in fresh starts. And I believe the best leaders come from the people who actually do the work. Then he turned toward the glass doors and in walked Theo. The room went completely silent. Theo looked stunned, but proud. Mark continued. Effective immediately. Theo Alvarez will be stepping into the role of Director of Operations for the Austin branch. It took about half a second before the room exploded into applause. People actually stood up. Some clapped, others whooped. I think someone even teared up. Theo gave a small wave, the kind of humble gesture that said he didn't expect this. Then he stepped up to speak. I can't promise this place will be perfect, he said. But I can promise we'll do things differently. No more unpaid overtime. If you stay late, you'll get paid. If you work hard, you'll be recognized fairly. And if you need time off, you'll take it. You could hear the emotion in his voice, steady but full of meaning. After the meeting, I went back to my desk. My inbox was flooded with messages from coworkers saying things like, finally someone who gets it, and it feels different. Already. That afternoon, HR sent an internal memo listing new work policies, mandatory time tracking, overtime approval forms, quarterly wellness days, and an anonymous reporting system for any abuse of authority. It was everything Melissa had pretended to promise but never delivered. A few weeks later, I took a walk on my lunch break, something I hadn't done in months. Downtown Austin was glowing under winter sun, and the smell of coffee and barbecue filled the air. For the first time, I wasn't anxious about checking my phone. I thought about those nights I'd driven home on empty streets, crying in my car because I felt trapped. About the spreadsheet I'd filled in half out of spite, half out of desperation. And then, about that back pay sitting in my bank account, proof that my time, my effort, my exhaustion mattered. 3 months later, I used that money to enroll in a certification program for project management. It felt like reclaiming something that had been stolen. When I finished the course, I got a new job at a small startup in Austin. On my last day at Anderson Logistics, Theo pulled me aside and said, You taught me something. You can fight the system without becoming like it. We hugged, and for once it wasn't awkward or forced. It was real, mutual respect built from surviving something ugly together. As for Melissa, a coworker sent me her LinkedIn months later. Her headline now read, Independent Operations Consultant. Passionate about efficiency and leadership. Culture, she'd left out the part about the federal investigation, of course. Theo joked that she'd probably start a course on how to motivate your team without paying them. I laughed, but deep down I didn't even feel angry anymore. Now, whenever I clock out at exactly 5 p.m., I make a ritual of it. I close my laptop, stretch, and take a big breath. The hours I gave them taught me what I was worth. The hours I took back proved it.